This is notes from the interview with Calvin Harris on Tuesday, October 8th at 9 a.m. Those in attendance were Calvin Harris, Dave Harper as union representative, Denise Sanford, and Kevin Harbison. Kevin Harbison said to Calvin, the meeting began with Kevin Harbison saying that we were meeting today to get Calvin's statement in regards to what happened on Thursday, October 3rd. We are not here to debate the issue today. We're just wanting to take Calvin's statement. At that point, Dave Harper said, "Are you making your decision today?" Kevin stated, "We are in the investigation process." And then he asked Calvin to tell us what happened and his reasons for not working the mandatory overtime. Calvin stated, "I had a school conference set up for about a week and a half in advance and felt I needed to be there. I had one meeting at 5:30 and one at 5:45. The kids it's a new school for them. They've only been there for 7 days, and I wanted to know where they stood. I could not make a change in the conference time once set. You cannot really change things with the school." At that point, Mr. Harbison asked, "Did you try to make other arrangements?" And he said he didn't. He did also say that his wife had gone to the meeting too, that she was also there. That she went to the conferences as well. Kevin also asked, "Did you try to call the school to make any to reschedule?" And he didn't. He said no. They also brought up that about his wife's illness due to his intermittent FMLA that he has, that she's not feeling good right now. And however, he had already stated that she attended this meeting as well. And Kevin then asked Calvin if there was anything else. Kevin asked if there was anything else Calvin wanted to add to his statement. And all he said was that their youngest has been having problems and was just now starting to adjust, and that they were at this meeting until 7:30. They, of course, met with the teacher, met with the counselor, met with the principal, and it's a new school, new friends. It's been hard on his daughter, and they're just trying to prod her along and to help her. At that point, Dave Harper said that, speaking in defense of Calvin, said that we had a flawless, an employee with a flawless record, and he has family at home and a sick wife, and that the contract states if an employee cannot work for good reason, and he thinks he gave a good reason. He asked us for some flexibility. However, also, he asked us to make a decision pretty soon and get this resolved. They'd like to move things. At that point, Kevin said, "We're going to take our time to investigate this and to make a good decision. We are not going to be rushed." Then Dave Harper asked if he wanted to clarify this because there could be another problem, and he wanted to know that based on what we're doing here, he wanted to know that so that we were going to refuse if there was mandatory overtime, because it does occasionally happen at the steel warehouse. If there was mandatory overtime and somebody refused it, would we terminate them regardless of the reasons? Kevin said, "We're going to follow the contract. I don't want to keep debating." Okay, he said, "We're going to follow the contract as what the contract says." And he went into that, but he said that we're not going to keep debating this. this is not a grievance meeting. I just wanted to call and get Calvin's statement. And Calvin, do you have anything to add? In which he did not have anything to add. Anyway, the outcome of the meeting is that Calvin stated he did not try to make alternate arrangements. He did not try to reschedule the meetings. He didn't call the school to try to explain what was going on. His wife also went to the meetings, so it wasn't that he was the only one that could go. She went as well. Okay, that's it. Thanks, Paula. Also, as far as we also had a meeting with Joe Worthington of Smith & Smith Attorneys on October 8th, 2002 at 9:30 a.m. to discuss the situation with Calvin Harris. And as Mr. Worthington stated, we have not been left with much choice. What is the language in the contract is critical, and we need to be able to enforce the mandatory overtime, that if we don't try to make this stick and we lose the mandatory overtime, that would hurt us, and we need to try to make this stick and not lose that language. Otherwise, we'd never be able to enforce the mandatory overtime. And that's pretty much sums up what Joe said. Okay, this next is notes from a meeting with Mark Wyrock and Mike Mahurin on Monday, October 7th, 2002. Those in attendance were Mark Wyrock, W-E-Y-R-A-U-C-H, and Michael Mahurin, M-A-H-U-R-I-N, and Denise Sanford and Kevin Harbison. Kevin began the meeting by stating that we're here due to the grievance and complaint a complaint that involved both parties, and we've had problems on both sides, and that we want to address this. We need to work together as professionals. Don't do things that you know will antagonize another. No violent behavior. We're all adults, and we need to act like it, and we just need to get back to work and do our job. Also in attendance was Dave Harper. I'm sorry. And then Kevin asked if Dave had any comments. Dave said, at our last union meeting, the situation was discussed, and he said that both men shook hands, and he thought everything was resolved. But if they had anything to say, that they needed to say it now. Mark said, no, you just don't like having people yell at you in your face. But Mike also has issues too. And they were told that if you want, and Dave said, if you want to get this in the open and say anything, you need to do it now. Mark Wyrock said, basically, let me rephrase that. Both Mark and Mike went back and forth. Mark was saying, well, if he had ever said anything, just tell him. And they both pretty much said, hold on, back up right before after I said that Harper said, if you want to get this in the open and say anything, you need to do it now. And then I had started to say Mark Wyrock said something. At that point, Michael Mahurin started talking about how he felt, with things that Mark Wyrock was doing and how he felt about that. and things that Mark had said, and then Mark Wyrock said that if he ever said anything, that he should just tell him. He wanted to know. So they went back and forth, and Kevin talking about the different things that had bothered both of them. Mark didn't like being yelled at, and Mike didn't like things that he felt frightened of things that Mark had done. And anyway, finally Kevin Harbison said, do you guys, after they had talked this out, he asked if they felt that they could work together. Both had nodded yes. But Michael Mahurin said it's just the negativity from others, and he wants going to get along, but he just wants to be here to do his best, and then he wants to be able to go home. And he repeated things that was in his letter. Hesitantly, he repeated what he had in his letter about things that Mark Wyrock had done in the break room. And about what Mark had thrown at the door the day he was in the restroom, but he couldn't make a statement on that because he didn't see it. He just heard, but he did not see who did anything. But he was afraid, and if he had been coming out of the door, he could have been hurt, and it would have been worse than it was. Then still they went back and forth, and then Mark Wyrock said, well, like Kevin says, all this horseplay has to stop. And Kevin Harbison said, focus on your jobs, and if we do that, I don't think we will have these problems. And anyway, as the meeting ended, Michael Mahurin said he still doesn't feel that the situation is resolved, but we can go on. And that pretty much ended it. They spent several minutes going back and forth, Michael Mahurin and Mark Wyrock going back and forth discussing the things that bothered both of them. Mark Wyrock also claimed that he didn't like being accused of saying or doing things that he said he hasn't done or didn't do. But anyway, that pretty much ended that. Notes from interview with Kenneth Busse, B-U-S-S-E, on Tuesday, October 8th at 2:30 p.m. Can you describe for me your past work experience? It's a big range. I was a paratrooper. I was in the military police. I was at the State Department in D.C. doing security work. I worked in the termite department at Okolona Pest Control. I drove for UPS while in Florida. And I'm right now doing maintenance work out at Fort Knox. Second question, are you currently working? And yes, at A1A out at Fort Knox, do tree service and grass cutting. And how long have you been there? A couple of months. Would you be available for overtime work or weekends? Yes. What schools have you attended? Do you have any special training? Let me rephrase that. Do you have any special training or classes you would like to mention? Crisis management training. What are your major responsibilities in your current job? I drive a chipper truck. CHIPPER. What do you like best in your responsibilities that you've had? Dealing with the public and doing service type work. Why do you want to leave your current job? I'm looking for more stable work. This is kind of seasonal. I want security. Describe for me the best supervisor you've ever had. He was a good leader. He could talk to anyone and they would walk out feeling good about themselves. What about the worst supervisor? Everything was all about money. If money wasn't involved, he had no interest or no time for you. Paula, back after I said, what did you like best in your responsibilities? The next question should be, what do you like least? He answered that he could not think of anything for that answer. he said that he guessed maybe it would be different personalities that you have to deal with. Let's see. What do you feel is your strongest asset? My personality, my communication skills. What would you like to improve? My leadership skills. How would your last supervisor describe you as an employee? A hard worker, intense, dependable. What did you do in your last job to contribute towards teamwork? Trying to keep the morale going, efficiency. I have the big four, what I call the big four, and this is their order: safety, quality, product, efficiency. And I try to keep everyone going toward the same goals. Can you give me an example of a time when you had to go above and beyond the call of duty in order to get the job done? Try to go as good as I can go every day, so I really can't think of anything. Tell me about some major obstacle you had to overcome in your last job, and how did you handle it? While I was in the pest control business, when I first started out in the pest control business, I was kind of shy. While I was in the military police, I dealt with people some, but you just deal with them and then leave. So it was different when I was in the pest control business, and but as I dealt with them and dealt with them more and more, it just became like that they were friends that you were just happened to be doing stuff for them. What kind of things bother you the most? People who don't work as a team, bad attitudes, and negativity. That ended the interview with Kenneth Bussey. I liked him. He seems like he would be a good worker. And he's going over to interview with Bob Wuetcher, Wuetcher, and Steve Atherton at the Steel Warehouse at 3:30. Thanks, Paula. Bye.